Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the 5th day of June, 2021, I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got, the hazardous weather graphic, and there are no hazards anywhere in the state, no watches, warnings, or the red area the red area warning, and the gold area there as a watch area. None of that around the state anywhere. Aleutians, northern interior, panhandle, central interior. No storms affecting the state or even coming close to anything that would be considered a storm for the next couple of days. Stronger system, but still pretty mediocre. We'll push into the central eastern Aleutians on Monday. And that's about it. Otherwise, satellite imagery showing a lot of clouds over the southeast coast up to the eastern North Gulf Coast. But the bulk of the moisture there, the heavier clouds, the heaviest precipitating or producing clouds off to the south, Dixon entrance on down to the main system, finally kicking off to the east there. But that did bring about a quarter inch of precipitation the last 12 hours down at or a third of an inch at Metlakatla, quarter of an inch fell at Gustavus, and Cake picked up about 1,300. So those showers are scattered around the panhandle today, but there also was a little bit of clearing in some areas, had some sun breaks, and they'll continue, become a little bit more as far as the sun goes, and a little less of the shower activity here for tomorrow, and then even less of that, more sun on Monday. Otherwise, a lot of sun over the North Gulf Coast there, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, westerly flow, west-northwest flow. Same thing for the Kenai Peninsula, areas of southern Alaska seeing some northerly winds earlier on. Winds out of the north pushed temperature up to 73 degrees earlier today at Seward, but then the wind swung around to the south, and in less than an hour the temperature dropped to 61 degrees, so a 12-degree drop there with that marine influence, just a reversal of the wind direction there. Otherwise, sunny skies, temperatures in the mid to upper 70s. Susitna Valley today, 77 reported at Willow, while, Eagle River Visitor Center, 75 degrees up in the interior there. Beaver, you can see a lot of clear skies around the upper Yukon River, Yukon Flats area. They had 75 degrees at Eagle, and other areas in the lower 70s over the interior. Also some showers scattered around there, eastern interior, but pretty light. Snow fell the entire day at Nome. They carried snow in the forecast. Afternoon temperature 35 degrees and snow the entire day in the observations. They picked about 1,300 water equivalent snowfall, and that's not bad for the 5th of June there, to have it snow an entire day in the month of June, and an afternoon reading about 35 degrees. That's pretty chilly, definitely for the month of June. And showers over St. Lawrence Island, and actually rain and snow showers scattered across the Seward Peninsula, Tin City. They were sitting right at freezing this afternoon at mid-afternoon, right at 32 degrees. That's a cold spot in the state. As I mentioned, 77 at Willow, the warm spot. Otherwise, the Bering Sea, a lot of low clouds there through the central areas, Pribilof Islands, right on down to the north shores of the Alaska Peninsula, Fox Islands, and north side of the Aleutians there. Clearing south side, that kind of signifying how thin the cloud deck is. It is low C stratus, and so it's banked up along the islands there with a northerly flow. Winds kicking up about 30 miles an hour to the west there for Adak and Atka. And winds gusted not that bad, 25 miles an hour there at Nome. Scammon Bay had a wind gust to 48 miles an hour, kind of a standout there, just kicked up in the afternoon, kind of with a band of showers moving through around that upper level low that's persistent out there over the northern Bering Sea, and is going to remain there for the next couple of days. But Monday starts slowly moving eastward and weakening, but that's going to keep it cloudy, showery, and unsettled, and definitely chilly over the Seward Peninsula into the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta areas, with an increase in the showers into the Kuskokwim Valley on Monday. Otherwise, you can see, again, the clearing occurred in some areas out over the western Bering Sea, a pretty good break, but especially south side of the Aleutians on up into the Gulf of Alaska, just about cloud-free over the western Gulf into the central areas, and then the showers over the Panhandle with those clouds into the eastern Copper River Basin there. Northerly winds gusting up to about 30 to 35 miles an hour, central Copper River Basin along Copper River, Gulkana. Seeing those winds gusts this afternoon, 20 to 30 miles an hour up into the Denali Highway area, especially through the mountain passes. Otherwise, that's about it for winds. On the chart today, again, the clearing skies, not much in the way of any thunderstorm activity, let alone showers popping up. And then that system there cutting across the Queen Charlotte Islands, finally taking the heavier moisture off to the east, and so a slow drying trend for the Panhandle for the next couple of days. Forecast for tonight, low clouds and fog, high pressure up over the, or just off the Arctic coast there, light winds, so low clouds and fog possible anywhere tonight from the North Slope on out to the Arctic Ocean. South of the mountains, though, variably cloudy to mostly clear to mostly cloudy, and some isolated showers possible over the mountainous terrain. They'll be pretty scattered, isolated, and light. And areas of rain and snow continue for the Seward Peninsula, light rain and snow, Norton Sound. Maybe some of that getting, trying to get up into the Kotzebue area. Probably won't make it, though. And some of that will try to push in past the Kuskokwim Mountains, but probably won't make it. But definitely it'll hit the Yukon Delta, but again, light amounts. Stays brisk winds across the Bering Sea there, a little bit of a gradient. 25 to 30 miles an hour to the west or west-northwest, but light winds for the Aleutians, that high-pressure ridge right in over the area there, and diminishing winds there for the Alaska Peninsula as well. Pilot Point probably won't see 35-mile-an-hour wind gusts tonight, but could be a little breezy for Kodiak Island, especially on the east side and the Barren Islands. Small craft advisories out for those areas tonight into tomorrow. Just enough of a ridge there over Bristol Bay and lower pressure in the Gulf to keep it from a west-northwest direction, which means clearing skies downsloping off the Aleutian Range, Alaska Peninsula. Chance of showers in the afternoon, isolated thunderstorms for the Chugach Mountains into the interior, and one of those taller clouds could develop into a thunderstorm all the way up to the eastern Brooks Range. Otherwise, another nice sunny day. Temperatures in the 70s again in the interior. Kodiak Island, nice up to the North Slope, becoming partly to mostly sunny, but that pesky low hangs in over the northern Bering Sea, keeping the Seward Peninsula and Norton Sound along the Nulato Hills into the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, chilly, unsettled, and damp with cloudy skies. And the Panhandle still looking partly to mostly cloudy with less shower activity than what you saw today. Still a couple of lingering troughs there, keeping those shower chances up. High pressure continues to control the Aleutians and southern Bering Sea. And for Monday, that high gives way there. System drives northeastward and kind of puts a big dent in the ridge, with one center pulling back to just north of Shemya. Look for rain and brisk winds to push into the Fox Islands. And rain will slide into the western Alaska Peninsula there, but partly sunny skies for the areas to the east. Kodiak Island, another dry day with a fair amount of sunshine there. Shower chances increase over Bristol Bay, and shower chances increase over the Kuskokwim Valley as well, coming in from the west with that system slowly edging eastward. And actually kind of shower chances and clouds increase across much of the interior, with isolated thunderstorms possibly a little bit more widespread than what we've seen. But the North Slope on out to the Arctic coast looks mostly sunny with high pressure and a little bit more of an offshore flow there, possibly. And for the Panhandle, partly to mostly sunny, just a risk of an isolated lingering shower or two, so drying trend there for maybe 1 to possibly 2 days in a row. And lows tonight in the 40s for the southeast coast and 45 to 50 for southern Alaska. Upper 30s, though, for McGrath and Nikolai, and lower 30s to a little below freezing there for the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, and the northwest coast to Cape Lisburne. Upper 20s, eastern Arctic coast, and near 40 for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Highs tomorrow into the, much like today, 70s to Sitna Valley. Probably could still see some 70s Kenai Peninsula inland areas, with mid-60s for the Kuskokwim Valley to the Kobuk Valley, and 50s, lower 60s Brooks Range and the North Slope. 30s to lower 40s for the North Arctic coast, mid-30s for St. Lawrence Island, and upper 30s to near 40 for the Seward Peninsula, and near 50 for the inland areas of the Yukon-Kuskokwim Valley, or Delta, I'm sorry. And as I mentioned, Kuskokwim Valley, 60, 65, upper 40s for the Pribilofs, 45 to 50 for the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, 50 to 55, near 60 Kodiak Island. And then the lows for Monday morning, upper 20s, central eastern Arctic coast to mid-30s on the west side, again down to near just a shade below freezing, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, upper 30s southwest interior, and near 50, or 40s to near 50 for southern Alaska. Same thing for the Tanana Valley, and mid-40s for the Panhandle, lower to mid-40s for the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. Highs on Monday, not much change, 60s, 65 to 75 for south central Alaska up into the Tanana Valley. Mid to upper 50s for the Panhandle, mid 30s to mid-40s for the Arctic coast, mid-30s St. Lawrence Island, 45 to 50 for the Bering Sea.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First flying weather graphic for Sunday morning. Same story, IFR, North Slope Arctic coast, south of the Brooks Range, VFR. Maybe some areas of marginal VFR possible along the western and central Alaska range there up toward Windy Pass. Maybe the eastern range also, but nothing too significant. More significant, though, the IFR, it's pushed in across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta and extends up across the western half of Norton Sound, southern Seward Peninsula, the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, eastern Bering Sea, all of the Aleutians in the western Alaska Peninsula on into Bristol Bay. IFR also eastern Gulf of Alaska right up to the coastline of the southeast coast. And then two extensions there, one in over Dixon Entrance covering Prince of Wales Island, Ketchikan, Metlakatla areas, and also Elfin Cove, Latuya Bay, and in across Lincoln Glacier Bay. And for the afternoon, we've got improvement. We got some improvement. Well, not much for the Panhandle. The IFR along and off the coast goes away, but stays up in the north and down to the south. Otherwise, marginal VFR. Kodiak Island, Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet, northward, right on up to north of the Brooks Range there. Improving on the north slope, western Arctic coast becoming marginal VFR. Stays IFR on the east side. IFR there, Nulato Hills, eastern Norton Bay. On southwestward across the Delta, Nunivak Island, Kuskokwim Delta coast, St. Matthew Island. But notice the VFR breaking out now, going from the IFR to start to just about all VFR for the Aleutians up to the Pribilofs, western Alaska Peninsula. And for the Monday morning outlook, back to pretty widespread IFR with that system upper level low and the associated moisture for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Norton Sound, across the Seward Peninsula, northwest coast, Kotzebue. Cutting off right around Selawik, and then some marginal VFR just extending a little farther to the east. So Kobuk, Koyukuk Valley, northern interior to the border, VFR southward. Now we've got some marginal VFR sneaking on up into Prince William Sound and trying to push eastward into Turnagain Arm, Chugach Mountains. Anchorage right on the edge, Palmer right on the edge, Copper River Basin basically VFR. And good VFR there for the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, still the Pribilofs, but then some lower conditions moving into the central Aleutian areas. And then for the afternoon, that area kind of expands and shifts eastward, keeping Adak and Atka in the IFR zone and spreading to the Fox Islands and the extreme western Alaska Peninsula there, False Pass area. Probably not quite making it to Cold Bay. Marginal for the Pribilofs, IFR from the Kuskokwim Delta and Bay Area, portions of the Yukon Delta, especially along the coast. IFR westward across the northern Bering, St. Matthew Island, on up to the Bering Strait. Another batch there along the northwest coast and Noatak Valley area to the southern slopes of the Long Mountains. And VFR for the North Slope, IFR for the central Arctic coast, marginal for the Panhandle, marginal for the North Gulf Coast, eastern interior stays VFR. And for passes Anatuvik tomorrow, marginal VFR early, then VFR for a good portion of the day through the afternoon into evening. And Anatuvik, some early marginal VFR, then VFR. And I think I said that right, marginal VFR to VFR. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR the entire stretch of the day from start to finish. Same thing for rainy. And windy VFR throughout the day, either approach. Definitely Isabel Montasta VFR from start to finish on Sunday there with good visibilities. And Tanita, either approach VFR, west or east. And Portage, west or east, also VFR. Pretty good day. Another good day for Portage Pass. And Chilkoot and White, lower conditions, IFR, trending toward marginal VFR into the afternoon. And for the freezing levels, that cold upper level low keeping 2,000 feet there over the Seward Peninsula, up to 6,000 feet there over the southwest coast, and then 6,000 feet with that weak upper high. Really, it's just kind of a lack of area between two upper lows, one over the Great Slave Lake and then that one over the Seward Peninsula. So really not much of an upper level high, but enough to produce some sunshine. 8,000 feet central Aleutians. Icing, occasional light to isolated icing there with that system, Seward Peninsula, Yukon Delta, Nunivak Island. Jet stream Northwesterly is 80 to 95 knots, Bering Sea to the Alaska Peninsula. Strongest winds there also at 9,000 feet and 3,000 feet, 45 to 55 or 40 to 55 knots. Light over the interior. Turbulence. Occasional light to isolated moderate mechanical chop type stuff for small aircraft. Kamishak Bay, Southern Cook Inlet, Barren Islands, Alaska Peninsula.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, joined again by Eric Stevens of GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And Eric, thanks so much for joining us again tonight.
Happy to be here, Dave.
Thanks, Eric. And we've been talking about the complex gathering of information from satellites, looking down on the surface of the planet. And some of those orbits around the planet work for Alaska, and some of them don't. There's a lot of challenges with those. How can we get better imagery for the poles and specifically for Alaska?
Right. Well, today we're going to talk about a very interesting kind of satellite orbit that has potential to be real helpful for the high latitudes.
Okay.
Especially us here in Alaska. Canadians, Russians, Norwegians will all be interested in this. The satellites are not in orbit yet. Now the future is uncertain, but it's possible, and if this happens, it will be wonderful for Alaska. It's called the highly elliptical orbit.
Oh, that sounds
it's interesting. Yeah. And I think first, to help our discussion, we should get back to some of Kepler's laws and how do satellites work.
Sure.
Kepler's first law, an orbit of a planet around a sun or a weather satellite around the Earth is not necessarily a circle, it's an ellipse.
Okay.
And the highly elliptical orbit takes advantage of this aspect. We're going to put the Earth in one of the ellipse and then stretch one of the foci of the ellipse and then stretch that ellipse out real far to make it highly elliptical.
The foci is that bend part of the end of the ellipse. If you're going to stretch out a rubber band, that would be the center, kind of the stretchy part.
Yes.
Ends. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then Kepler's second law says that the closer something is to the thing that it's orbiting, the faster it goes.
Okay.
We see this in the solar system, that Mercury flies around the sun real fast. Jupiter, much slower. Jupiter's further away, it's slower. Mercury's closer in, it's faster. This happens with weather satellites too. Even satellites like the International Space Station, it's pretty close to the Earth. It goes around the Earth in only 90 minutes. That thing is moving.
Fast.
It's only 250 miles away. So how can we take advantage of these two aspects of Kepler's laws of motion to get better weather surveillance of Alaska? And this highly elliptical orbit is going to be the approach. So we have with us today our friendly planet Earth and our simulated satellite, the lid off of this salt shaker
like
here.
Sputnik there. Yeah.
There it is. It's shiny, it's metal, it's space worthy. And what we want to be able to do is, could you have a satellite hover over the top of the world, up over Alaska? You can't really do that. Geostationary satellites have to be over the equator.
Okay.
So how could we almost solve this? And this is the tricky part. Maybe should we tilt the Earth
Tilt the
over?
other, focus on the pole. That's what we're trying to accomplish here, right?
So here we have the northern side of the planet, and we're going to trace out the orbit of a satellite with this salt shaker lid here. Now imagine a highly elliptical orbit. So let's put the Earth in one of the foci of the ellipse, and we'll have an imaginary foci out here. So the satellite will not go in a circle around the Earth, but will be in this long strung out ellipse. So the satellite will go...
Kind of like a racetrack.
Yes, there you go, like a racetrack. So it's an oval elliptical shape like that. And notice now that when the satellite's over here, we've got a nice view of the northern hemisphere around. There's Alaska, Russia, Canada, Greenland, all there. So that's the ellipse aspect of an orbit, Kepler's first law. The second law saying that when you're further away as a satellite, you go slower. And this we can take real advantage of. Because the way this orbit works, when the satellite goes over Antarctica here, it's going to be close to the Earth. It's going to be moving, whoosh, goes on by. And then as it comes out here, it will slow down. This increases what is known as the dwell time. The satellite will just hang here looking for hours at Alaska and the high Arctic. And then eventually it will come around and it will accelerate and whiz around the South Pole and then come back and hang here for a while because it's further away from the planet. It goes slower. It has to. That's the laws of motion. And such like that, repeating.
Wow.
Now the real important way to make this work is you have to have two satellites. So that while one is whipping around the pole, you've got the other one out here, and they work as a team. You could then get a series of images of Alaska that can be almost from a a constant frame of reference,
Right.
and you can loop them together to make movies. You can take a picture every 10 minutes, say, of Alaska, and then loop it, playing it at several frames a second. You could see the clouds whiz on by. You know, the Weather Channel, weather broadcasters in the lower 48 especially can show these movie loops from the geostationary satellites. In Alaska, we've never really been able to do that very well, especially in the higher, most northern parts of the state, because those geostationary satellites are over the equator. It's not a good view. And this highly elliptical orbit whipping around the South Pole and then dwelling up here would be a way for us to get that constant frame of reference and do really good weather surveillance over the Arctic, seeing where those storms are, where they're going. Nothing quite like a movie loop of the weather in time to really illustrate what's important, what's going on.
And compared to what we have right now, we just have small windows or snapshots of what's going on with the polar orbiters. We don't have that long range view that's looking top down to give us that complete motion picture that helps us understand so much of the atmosphere at this
There's
point.
so many different kinds of satellites. Each has their advantage. Each is important, and the highly elliptical orbit satellite will also fit into that scheme. It's a nifty idea to solve an Alaskan challenge.
That's fantastic. Well, that sounds really exciting. Again, kind of a satellite dream of the future to come. Okay, very good. Thanks for joining us today, Eric. We really appreciate the information. And if you'd like to learn more about what Eric does at GINA, at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, we invite you to visit the web address that you see on your screen there. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's CS analysis, not too much different from yesterday. Still melting back to be the main reason for the movement there, but really opening up over the northern Bering Sea area, as you can see. They're even into the Bering Strait and to the north. And that'll continue to melt for the next, probably the rest of the summer. So coastal water forecast, we've got for the Panhandle, light winds along the coast variable, 10 knots for the south coast, seas 6 feet, south 10 knots for the north coast with 5 to 6 foot seas. And southerly winds 5 to 10 knots, central and northern inside waters, 2 foot seas, and northwest at 10 for Clarence Strait with seas running 2 feet. And then for the Monday outlook, winds stay light, variable on the south coast there at 10 knots with 6 foot seas, southerlies at 10 knots for the north coast, 5 to 6 foot seas. And again, 5 to 10 knot southerlies for the central northern inside waters and northwest at 10 for Clarence Strait. And then for the going to south central Alaska for tomorrow, or I'm sorry, there we go. There we are, going the wrong direction. Southerlies 15 knots for Prince William Sound for Sunday, otherwise east at 15 for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Western North Gulf Coast, west winds at 20 knots, 5 foot seas. Small craft advisories for the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay. West winds 30 knots, 8 to 9 foot seas, and west winds 20 knots for southern Cook Inlet. And for Prince William Sound on Monday, light east winds, slight seas. Wind speeds about 10 knots, and not too bad for the North Gulf Coast around Middleton Island, southeast at 15 with 5 foot seas. Westerlies 20 knots, 7 foot seas for the western North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands. Small craft advisories still for the Kamishak Bay area, westerlies 25 knots, and Cook Inlet south to southwest 15 to 20 knots with 4 to 6 foot seas. Kodiak Island, west winds 25 knots, seas 7 feet. And Alaska Peninsula, small craft advisories also, west winds 25 knots, 7 to 8 foot seas. Area from Sitkinak to Castle Cape and Bristol Bay looking at 20 knot winds from the west or west southwest with 5 to 8 foot seas. And for Monday, southwest 20 knots there for the Alaska Peninsula, southwest 20 also for Bristol Bay. Small craft advisories, still Kodiak Island, west winds 25 knots with 6 to 8 foot seas, and 25 knot winds from Sitkinak to Castle Cape from the west and 7 foot seas as well. For the Fox Islands, Unalaska Island, west winds 20 to 25 knots, 7 foot seas, 15 to 20 knots. Unmac Island, Adak and Atka, light winds from the southwest, only 15 knots, and seas only 4 feet. 10 knot winds from Chitka Island from the south, 15 knots for the western Aleutians. And then for Monday, south winds at 10 knots there for the far western Aleutians. Chitka north at 20. And then kind of small craft advisories west 25 knots for the Pacific side of the Adak Atka area. and 25 knot winds or small craft advisories for actually the eastern Aleutians, 20 to 25 knots from the east and southeast. And then for the southwest coast tomorrow, west 25 knots, seas 8 feet, and same thing for the Pribilofs, west 25 knots. Small crafts also for St. Matthew Island, a little stronger, 30 knots out of the west with 12-foot seas. St. Lawrence Island, west winds 20 knots with 4-foot seas. And moving on to Monday for the southwest coast, west winds 20 knots, 8-foot seas, and 15 knots for the Pribilofs. Westerlies at 20 with 8-foot seas for the northern Bering Sea and St. Matthew Island. And for St. Lawrence Island, northwesterlies at 15 with 5-foot seas, and Norton Sound, winds will be southeast at 15 with 2-foot seas. Up along the farther to the north, small craft advisories there from Wales to Cape Thompson for northeasterlies at 25 knots and 5-foot seas, 20 knot winds from the northeast on up to Cape Beaufort. Turn easterly there for the western Arctic coast, central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast, east winds at 15 knots. And for Monday, brisk wind advisories for the far eastern stretch of the Beaufort Sea coast there, out of the east at 25 knots, otherwise east 20 for the central coast and the west side now, northeast 20 from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort. Cape Thompson to Wales, west at 10 with 2-foot seas, pretty light. And for tonight, light winds up there, high pressure just off the coast, areas low clouds and fog, and light winds, maybe some clearing, but that'll be mostly along the Brooks Range in the central interior. Isolated showers possible over the Alaska Range and maybe the mountains north of Fairbanks and or hills, and then also showers still in the forecast for the Panhandle, but nothing heavy, and rain and snow showers for the Seward Peninsula in toward Norton Sound, Nulato Hills, and along and north of the Yukon River, with high pressure controlling the Bering Sea, and that changes on to Monday with another system.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.